What's up guys, Zach from Meyer Customs, and today I'm going to show you how to install insulation in your classic car. So as you can see, this is already a nice car. We just need to make the driving experience a little more comfortable. So insulation, technically, do you need it? No, but it makes your AC colder in the summer. It makes your heat warmer in the winter. It reduces road noise, tire noise, vibrations. If you stay to the very end of this video, I'll show you a difference between me driving it with no insulation and me driving it with insulation, back to back, so you get a better idea from the video. But in person, it's a huge difference, Insulation is not that hard to install, so let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get these seats out and get them out safely. So what I like to do is put a little piece of wood block in the door right here. It's not touching anything, it's not scratching anything. It's gonna keep the door from closing in on me when I'm picking the seat up, taking it out of the car. The last thing you wanna do is scratch some nice pretty paint like this or a brand new door board. All right, so now that we got the seats out, we can determine on my application and your application how much needs to come out for the carpet to come off. So on mine, the transitional seals and the doors are gonna have to come off. And it looks like the kick panels are gonna have to come off as well. And depending on how much Hushmat I have, I might pop the rear seat up and see how much I have to work with when it comes to laying out my insulation. So it looks like someone didn't tuck and roll this carpet very well putting it in. So that's something that we'll fix going back together. Wherever your seats were bolted in, be careful picking the carpet up around there. They kind of like to seem like they're kind of glued or stuck right there. So do your best not to rip your carpet. Pull the carpet out. I like to fold it in over itself, so if anything gets dirty, it's the underside that gets dirty. And oh man. To show you this, we got a rusted floor pan right here, got a bad repair. So no insulation's going over a rusted floor pan, no holes, because if I put the Hushmat down over the insulation, the Hushmat will actually trap moisture against the floor pans, and it'll just get worse and worse and worse over the time. So if you see me change outfits in the middle of the video, it's probably because I'm putting a floor pan in at a different time of day. All right, so just a quick update. So we got all new sheet metal on the floors. They're butt welded, seam sealed. I put PR15 on the floorboards, is what I like to do, a nice rust encapsulator. So the floors are good, solid, good to go. So we're good to put the insulation on it. Now what I'm using is the Hushmat, just the black, pretty simple. This is just the floor mat kit. It should have everything we need in it. If you have the perfect budget, what you want to do is make sure the entire floor all the way back to the trunk is solid, no gaps between these. But if you have like an inch gap around each one, because your budget is just not allowing you to buy enough of these, that's fine, it's still going to work. But try to butt them up together as much as possible. And what I'm going to do real quick is lay these out all the way across the floorboard to make sure I have enough to put them solid without any gaps. What you don't want to do is have one overlap another one. You don't want any bulky spots in your carpet. So go ahead and lay these out and make sure you have the correct amount. Once you have them all laid out, it's time to put it in for real. Okay, so I laid out half. I figured out how much it takes to do just half. And I have more than double the amount of half, so I'm gonna go ahead and start sticking these in. Now installing these sheets, really simple. You just peel this plastic off the back here and they stick to just about anything. Just make sure your floor is really clean, vacuum it out, wipe it down real quick, but they'll pretty much stick to anything. If you had jute that pulled up, old jute off the carpet that pulled up, make sure you pull all the jute off the floor. You don't want these trying to stick to any kind of fabric. In a perfect world, the companies that sell these usually try to sell you the rollers, these big rollers. I've had a lot of the rollers and they always end up breaking and I always end up throwing it to the side and just using one of my plastic screwdrivers or pry bars. As long as it doesn't have the rubber on it, it pushes down nice and easy. You don't need the rollers. So the idea here is when we stick it to the floor, that the entire mat is completely stuck to the floor. That's going to get rid of the most vibrations, and that's going to be the most noise canceling. So make sure you stick it down really good. Make sure none of it's actually floating over the steel. Make sure it's actually contacting it. So I'm going to peel the backing off. And I'm not going to let it touch the steel until I'm ready to drop it. So here we have it initially stuck. I know it's black on black, so it's a little hard to see. But this is the point where we want to use our screwdriver to push it down in every turn, crevice, cripple that's in this floorboard, just so it contacts completely and we get the most sound deadening that we possibly can. Now when it comes to making cuts on these, like cutting out where the seat risers go or cutting out where the gas pedal is, your best bet is just a nice new razor blade. Get it set on there. What I do is I just smush it to get the outline, then I set it on my concrete and I cut it against my concrete. Some guys actually draw it out with chalk and they cut it out. Whatever way that works for you is the way that works for you, whatever you like to do. But definitely make sure you cut it before taking the sticker back off, or it's going to be a really pain in the butt. So when it comes to what you do and do not cut out for these, there's really not much that you really have to cut out for these. You could technically put them anywhere. The only spot I don't recommend is underneath the gas pedal. I like the gas pedal to be as solid as possible. You're not really missing out on that much of insulation from that little square of how the gas pedal usually bolts to the firewall. Alright, so now that we got all the Hushmat in, it's pushed in nice and well. I have it on all the bead rolls, all the lines. It's not floating anywhere over the steel. It's time to go ahead and put the jute in now. What we have is 8mm jute, aluminum backing. A lot of people would consider it overkill to have aluminum backing on the Hushmat and aluminum backing on the jute. But I like overkilling it. I like having that big difference when you're driving down the road. Huge difference. Now this is not nearly as simple as putting in the Hushmat because we want the carpet to look good after the carpet's in the interior. We have to cut this a certain way so all the cuts are like in corners. So when two pieces butt up together, the seam of the cut is in a corner, which I'll show you here in a second. Cutting this is kind of a pain in the butt. A razor blade is going to be a lot of work. Normal scissors is going to be a lot of work, but you could do with normal scissors. If you're just a DIY guy watching this video, do your own insulation, just get some nice scissors and cut it up. But shears are definitely your best bet. You can cut this up with shears really, really easy. So what I'm going to do is get the whole roll. And I'm going to push the roll down into the floorboard. And I'm just going to get a Sharpie and mark the edges between where the creases and crevices are on the floorboard. And after I get that out, after I get that marking, then I'm going to cut it up to what the size and shape it needs to be. Keeping in mind that all my cuts need to butt up together in edges and corners of the floor so we can hide them from the carpet. So here's what I usually consider as the hardest cut, is around the pedal and whatever you have going on right here on the driver's side of the floorboard. Here's an example of what I mean. Here is the crevice where two different angles meet on the floorboard. I'm going to cut the jute right there in that crevice, so when I butt it up with the next one, I'm going to be hiding the cut and the jute. If I just rolled the jute out all the way across, it wouldn't sit flat against the floorboard and the carpet would look crap sitting on top of it. And when I need to cut out like a square right here for this, for me the easiest thing to do is cut down to it, cut it out, and just leave the top piece kind of as a flap, because we're gonna spray glue this in. That little cut right there isn't gonna mean anything when this is all glued down together. Same thing with this bolt that needed to be accessed here. So I just cut it out from the top, then cut my square out. Then when I glue it together, it's not gonna mean anything. So now that I have this one cut up how I want it to be, I'm gonna go ahead and glue it in. I'm not gonna wait to make all my other templates, because as soon as I glue this in, the edges are going to move around just a little bit, and I don't want that to throw off another template or another cut that I make from the jute. So since I'm keeping this as a do-it-yourself video, I usually use my big spray gun to spray the glue in here. But this time I'm gonna go ahead and use this 3M automotive adhesive. It's pretty good. It's gonna work awesome for what we're using it for. And it keeps you from having to buy more and more tools, which keeps the budget down. So when we go to glue this in, you have to spray the jute and you have to spray the floorboard. The glue kind of sticks to itself. So we want to go ahead and spray this out. Watch your backing so you don't spray it on anything important on the dash. And we're going to make a little bit of a mess with this. It's going to get on the floorboard, but we're going to cover the floorboard anyway, so it's not a big deal. Now that I sprayed that, I need to spray the floorboard. The glue sticks to glue. You want it to get tacky, so I want that to air dry for a little bit while I'm spraying the floorboard. That's a good thing. Now if you need to hold up some cardboard when you're spraying so you don't hit something, by all means go for it, but kind of got this down so I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore. If I were to spray them both just fresh and put it on, it's actually going to slide around a little bit. It's not going to hold itself in place. Now it's up to you. If you want it to slide around for a little bit, just to get it just right for you, that works. But you know, pay attention to how it works and just get to a point where you're comfortable with how you're using it. Make sure you push it down nice and hard in every little area. Similar to putting on the Hushmat. We just want to make sure that the glue comes in good contact on every edge so it stays nice and sticky. Okay, so I want to give you a good example of making a template. So I have my roll. We have this front piece that we already spray glued in. And it's fine to make things in more than one pieces. This is a second piece I put in on the left side. I just want to make sure the carpet flow is good. So now we're going to make our template for the driver's side floorboard. So what I'm going to do is just roll this up until it buttons up. I have it nice and close to where I want it to stop on the side right here. It's going to stop right underneath our sill plate. And I'm going to push this up to the corner. I'm going to fill that corner of the transmission tunnel. This is where I want to trace it with the Sharpie. So when I put my second template right here in the middle, it's going to butt up together in a crease. So my Sharpie's right here. And I have like a rounded cut up here I need to straighten out so I can feel that between the two. It's kind of just a feel your way through, make a cut as best as you can, and try to make the edges. The most important part is the edges. Now I can make this a little bit oversized, get it off the big roll, throw it back down and cut it again. But what you can't do, if I cut it too small and throw it in here, it's not where I want the edges to be, then you're kind of just wasting a piece. Okay, so I'm gonna give myself kind of generic outline. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger than what I actually want it to be, because I can cut twice, but if I cut too much, like I said, it's a waste. So I'm gonna go all the way back to the seat risers, is my plan. Then I'll cut it out right at the seat riser so I can make my second piece in the back. Get it lined up how I want it, and just finish off my cuts. So that's actually right where I want it, and that's a little too big there. So the thing about the Jute is you can actually float it a little bit around a turn and a gap. It doesn't have to be in every single character line. If this was in every single character line, it would show up through the carpet and it would not look good. So make sure it floats a little bit. Okay, now that we got all the insulation in, it's time to put in the carpet. All right, guys, that does it for the installation. I think it made a huge difference. The heater and air conditioning doesn't have to work nearly as hard. The car sounds really quiet on the inside. I always say make sure you don't put any wiring underneath the insulation. I don't like gluing anything to wires, so I have the wires floating just beneath the carpet, and the carpet's not glued to the wire itself. I highly recommend gluing the carpet in, especially around the gas pedal and the brake pedals. We don't want that coming up and contacting anything like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask away in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. Tricky.